Sometimes in order to reach your goals, you have to go beyond your limits. And there are some incredible Pokemon who have done exactly that. From kicking so fast that the air friction burns their feathers, to having the ability to freely see and travel through alternate dimensions, even making their baby fight for them. But elves do that, only villains do that. But in preparation for Legends EA, I wanted to cover the in-depth information surrounding each and every Mega Pokemon.
Howdy there, I'm Krillic, and today we are going to be talking about every Mega Pokemon so far. Their abilities, some of the inspirations behind them, some of the science behind a couple of those abilities, and some theories about Mega Evolution as a whole. Potentially even explaining what Mega Evolution really is, and as we go along, we'll learn if Mega Evolution actually harms the Pokemon, or if it's just a cautionary tale. But before we get started, how about we talk about Mega Evolution itself? Get the broad strokes of what it is. How does it happen? Where do these stones originate from? And so we'll talk about the history surrounding it and all of the wonderful little secrets behind it. So the history is as follows. The origin of Mega Evolution is mysterious, with contradictions found within the world itself. Professor Sycamore theorizes that it originates from special stones known as evolution stones. And yes, those stones, the ones that turn your Eevee into the grand Technicolor rainbow of different types. But these stones were absolutely nuked with the power of Xerneas and Yveltal, specifically their light that they emit radiating into these stones when they were fired from the ultimate weapon over 3,000 years ago. Then you have the Draconid people, which are the ones that worship our Lord and Savior of the Ozone, Rayquaza. They basically believe that Mega Evolution originates from Rayquaza and from various meteorites that rained upon the Hoenn region thousands of years ago. And if you know Zinnia, she is one of the Draconid people. They worship Rayquaza because it was there to stop the conflict between Primo Kyogre and Groudon way back when. That way they wouldn't just absolutely destroy the planet. 1,000 years later, when a meteor strikes Sootopolis, both Groudon and Kyogre are reawakened. The Lore Keeper, standing with a rainbow stone, wished for Rayquaza to return. When it returned, that wish allowed Rayquaza to Mega Evolve. Now, the Rainbow Stone is basically what is used and is otherwise known as the Keystone to our current understanding at the very least, and is used to help the Mega Pokemon with the Mega Stone that they have for them Mega Evolve. Two pieces to one puzzle. And in the long-lost primal age of Hoenn, one of the many disasters that struck the region were numerous meteorites that rained upon them from space and landed in the home of the Draconids, Meteor Falls. With these meteorites glowing a rainbow brilliance not unlike the description of a keystone, which attracted Rayquaza and led to it putting an end to the disasters and restoring peace. So basically, we are getting a repeat of history, and we're kind of going back and forth. Many years ago, many thousand years ago, this happened before, now it's happening again. Almost as if history is just bound to repeat itself in different capacities. So now let's jump back to the modern day parallel, as 1,000 years later, disasters befell the region once more. Most notable was a massive meteorite described with boundless brilliance and directly compared to a keystone that bored deep into the ocean and created what would eventually come to be the location of Sootopolis City, with the impact cracking the ground and releasing a wave of primal energy, causing Groudon and Kyogre to awaken once more in their thirst for power. I am going to note here and now, I am not discussing Primo Kyogre and Groudon today. They are going to get their own video about primal energy and the energy of the planet itself, and who knows, maybe I'll fit in a wonderful Zygarde cameo. It might be a big part of that. Back to our disaster, as this led to the people to wish for Rayquaza to appear once more and save them, as it had done in the past. And once Rayquaza did appear, the people fell to their knees and wished for salvation, causing a great change to overtake Rayquaza as it Mega Evolved, with it using this power to defeat Groudon and Kyogre once again. So, When we look at modern and past, and we see the repeat of history, we're seeing the meteors, we're seeing the people and their connection to Rayquaza. It all sounds pretty conclusive, doesn't it? No, it's never that easy. It's never, ever that easy, neither in real life or in what we have here with Pokemon. Because just like the unknown true origin of the first hamburger or the ice cream sundae, yes, it's very, very inconclusive and well argued. So too are the origins of Mega Evolution, because that story implies Rayquaza was the first to Mega Evolve, but then we look at an old Kalos legend from the Tower of Mastery that tells of a trainer and Lucario arriving in the region long ago, with the pair discovering 2 strange stones and subsequently leading to the world's first Mega Evolution. So now your next question should simply be, well, how old is the Tower of Mastery? No clue. I tried to look at inspirations of what it could be based off of, which would be the Le Mont Saint Michael, which was built in 708, like year 708 in Normandy, France. And yeah, sure, we could be like, oh, it's, you know, from the year 708, fantastic. That's not a very reliable assumption to make, especially as we can kind of guess that Pokemon is in a far future, way ahead of our own, concerning the technology that they have and what they can do. So maybe we'll just have to wait until we get an answer in Legends ZA for that. Ultimately, though, it is concluded at this point, at least by most people, that Rayquaza is truly the first to actually Mega Evolve, whereas Mega Lucario may have just been the first modern, like, understanding of Mega Evolution. So, with that out of the way, and with these, you know, questions of what came first, who's who, blah, 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 and all these extra questions, how about we start to focus on what we do know and start to extrapolate future information from that. How does Mega Evolution work? Mega Evolution itself unleashes a massive amount of energy, as mentioned by Professor Cosmo, which itself is implied to have a direct connection, if not outright be a Pokemon's own life force, as it's mentioned by Lysander that Professor Sycamore believes Mega Evolution releases all of a Pokemon's hidden energy at once that can't be achieved via regular evolution. This is coupled with Courtney, or Matt's, attempt at causing a rocket filled with infinity energy to explode, with Matt outright claiming it'd be like Mega evolving the rocket. And if you don't know what infinite energy is quite literally a Pokemon's life force canon. Like, canonically, that is a Pokemon's life force. To give you an idea of what it does, it is literally what allows them to live, to use their moves, to rest, replenish their moves and energy, and that infinite energy itself has been harnessed by people such as the Devon Corporation in mass. This has been done to create submarines, to send out a rocket, as we just talked about, and so much more. If you look at the Pokemon watchers, such as Tracy Sketchit, they study Pokemon's health through the effectiveness of their moves. Was that Thunder Shock a high voltage true Thunder Shock? If not, that's how you know the Pokemon could be sick, something could be wrong, there might be a blockage in their electrical organ, we don't know, but it's a sign of it because it's fueled through infinite energy, which is their life force. It goes way back. And it's you know, I only learned about infinite energy this past year, so this is just, you know, I gotta do a video on it at some point, and we'll talk about that later. Let's talk about more about our Pokemon characters, the games, and so on and so forth, because we have Steven Stone, who claims that Mega and Keystones, what they exactly are, is a mystery. Archie, Maxie, and the events of the Delta episode show that meteorites contain their own latent power, and under the right conditions can be turned into either Mega or Keystones. This is directly demonstrated in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where the meteorite slowly changes to resemble a Mega Stone over the course of the game. That is, before it's eventually consumed by Rayquaza during the Delta episode itself. While this allows a legendary Pokemon to Mega Evolve without technically holding the stone, it's implied by Zinnia that Mega Stones, or at least the meteorites, that fuel Rayquaza's Mega Evolution eventually lose their power. It's like there's this usable energy or catalyst within it that is being used up. Similarly to Megastones, Keystones can also be found in certain locations, such as Meteor Falls, where Matt found his. So again, it kind of comes back to meteors over and over and over again, and again, these are just little seeds that we're planting along the way that will be talked about later. I don't want to overload you because this is a lot of history and information regarding Mega Evolution, so don't worry. For all of you who are asking like a bunch of questions, we'll get there. In Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Chorus questions whether or not Z-Power can surpass the Mega Ring. Dexio and Cinna directly implied that the two are similar due to the trainer-Pokemon relational bond, another source of power often visited within the Pokemon world. I want you to understand that Chorus himself studied how to actually allow the power of Pokemon to reach their full potential, believing that it came from anger, from hatred, from malice. Well, he came to understand that the bond between Pokemon and human in a positive light can bring out these same abilities or the same heightened power. And so that's where we're starting to look at things and see that there's a similarity, as Dexio and Cinna said, between Z-Power or Z-Moves and Mega Evolution, as that bond is present and necessary. This also implies that Mega Evolution only works because of the bond between trainer Pokemon. So how does that work with Rayquaza? Well, an entire group of people worshipped Rayquaza. We can assume there's some sort of bond there, even if it's not trainer Pokemon bond. There is a relationship bond between human and Pokemon there, which, with Rayquaza being a legendary, there is the chance or potential that it needs more of a bond, more energy, more going into it, so that way it can reach its true potential, the height of its power. And I found something interesting, or at least I found out something interesting from the Pokemon Adventures manga, which is simultaneous Mega Evolutions can also be accomplished by a trainer as long as they have a keystone for each Pokemon they are Mega Evolving. So if you have 6 Pokemon that are being Mega Evolved, you need their Mega Stones and their Keystones. Or at least really 6 Keystones and then the specific Mega Stones. However, doing so will cause severe mental stress on the trainer, and they will be unable to focus on anything other than a single target until the Mega Evolution is undone. So basically, I just imagine an entire team of Pokemon ganging up on one bad enemy as if it's a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure episode. Now that we are finally past all the history of it all and we have a decent understanding of how it all works, how about we move on to the actual meat of the discussion for today and start talking about our Megas, starting with numero uno, the OG poison grass type itself, Mega Venusaur. When Mega evolved, the flower on Venusaur's back grows more prominent, and 2 smaller pink flowers bloom, one on its forehead and one on its rear. Its legs and back have become sturdier to support the extra weight of the flower, which of course is a giant Rafflesia. Let's take a tangent real quick. So I have always said that the giant Rafflesia flowers in general are not carnivorous. They are, in fact, they're not. But I was watching Green Planet recently, just, you know, nice little documentary showing the life of the world through the eyes of plants, also in preparation for a future video I want to work on. And it started talking about the Rafflesia, and it started attracting flies, and the fly was going inside, and I'm like, no, please do not tell me I have been telling, like, thousands of people the wrong bit of information, and I haven't. I was panicking the whole time, as what happened is the, like, nectar, or the, like, pollen, rather, that the Rafflesia releases is within the Rafflesia flower, or at least the male part. And the fly was going in, getting stuck with it, and then it would go to a female Rafflesia to then pollinate it. And that was really cool, but also incredibly anxiety-inducing, because I thought I was spreading misinformation, and I would have felt genuinely terrible. So, tangent over, let's move on with Mega Venusaur. Additional leaves with woody stems supported by vines are also grown around the flower. Mega Venusaur also develops dark markings on its forehead below the new flower on its forehead. So luckily, basically, Venusaur's energy flows into the large flower, giving it even more life. That's where this Mega energy is directed into, and now we basically just have a frog with a giant Rafflesia on its back. And with all that extra muscle, that extra sturdiness that it now has thick fat as an ability, which means it can actually resist the extreme colds and extreme heats of the world, really helping this bad boy stay alive, in addition to the flower that it loves so much. Honestly, it's a very simple but effective Mega Evolution that doesn't change the base design too much and adds to it. I don't know why, you know, I kind of expect a little bit more, probably because I've seen some of the other Mega Evolutions, but maybe this was the point where they were looking at Gen 1 Pokemon and they really didn't want to change them too much out of fear for how people would react. Man the cannons, because next up we have Mega Blastoise. When Mega evolved, Blastoise develops 2 smaller shells over its arms, each with its water cannon. The 2 cannons on its back are replaced by a single central water cannon of greater size that can retract into its shell. This cannon extends forward over Mega Blastoise's head and is said to have a blast range of over 6 miles, 10 kilometers, and now it has small ridges that develop over its now red eyes and extend to its ears, which angle slightly backward. And there's just this nice little small point at the chin. Mind you though, a howitzer cannon using normal shells can shoot at a range of 14 miles or 22.5 kilometers. When we look at the Pokédex for Mega Blastoise, the additional information that it states is as follows. The cannon on its back is as powerful as a tank gun. Its tough legs and back enable it to withstand the recoil from firing the cannon. This is reflected with its ability Mega Launcher, which boosts the strength of Aura and Pulse moves used by Blastoise, or anybody with that ability, to be fair. So what does that kind of force look like, especially as when we look at Blastoise being a 5'3", 220-pound turtle? I'm 5'5". I'm technically 5'6", but like every short person's like, I'm 5'5 and a half, so it counts as 5'6". I'm 5'5 and a half, right? I'm not a tall guy. I am taller than Blastoise, and I'm trying to imagine something that weighs about 60 pounds more than I do, taking the recoil from a blast of a howitzer cannon as it shoots it out at something. I can't describe that, so I'm just gonna give you this. That is some incredible power, and I think we're ready to move on. So next up, we have the Pokemon to get not 1, but 2 Mega Evolutions. Mega Charizard. With its X form, its body and legs are more physically fit, spikes develop over its body, its eyes turn red, and now it has fin-like spikes under each horn and 2 more down its lower neck. The finger it has in the wing membrane disappears and the wing edges round out. Those claws that it has are also stronger, as it does have the ability Tough Claws. It breathes blue flames from the sides of its mouth constantly, and the flame on its tail now burns blue. The new power turns it black and creates more intense flames. I just find it really funny that it actually flat out says that the new power just turns it black. No other explanation. Charizard is just black now, and which gives it the power of the dragon. Then as we look at its Y form, it becomes sleeker but retains its normal color. 3 pointed horns now jut from the back of its head. Its snout has larger fangs and a ridge on the nose. It has additional small wings on its wrists, and ones on its back are now larger, more ragged than before. The tail has a large spike at the base with 3 smaller leading spikes, and the tip of its tail burns with a longer flame. This, in turn, is a visual representation of its own ability, Drought, which summons harsh sunlight, causing fire to burn better and water to evaporate faster. Now, I thought this was very strange, considering the fact that X has brighter, more harsher, hotter flames, and Y has, these wings and more developed versions of its original self without being so vastly changed. Now, Y form is said to have incredible flying prowess that is greater than that of a jet fighter. So let's put these two new abilities and forms into perspective for us in the real world. Now, a number of different sources, some of them which being firefighter-based sites, set the temperature of a blue flame to at least 4,532 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 2,500 degrees Celsius. But it can reach upwards of 5,432 Fahrenheit and 3,000 Celsius. These are the hottest flames, and they are used to extract iron as part of the smelting process. For you Minecraft nerds, or into ingots. It's kind of more like, raw iron from it technically, but hopefully you get the idea. As for its Y form and that flying prowess that it likes to boast, being greater than that of a jet fighter, it's kind of vague. I mean, of course, when I try to find the range, I find sources that are rather inconsistent or are just trying to tell me what the fastest jet fighter is. Top 10 fastest jet fighters 2024. Ugh. And it's just not giving me what I need. So, I am going to go with aviamagazine.com, which gave me a list of fighter jets through history. So, from there, I looked up a P-80 Shooting Star, the first U.S. developed turbojet fighter. It could reach a maximum speed of 600 miles per hour, 965 kilometers an hour, which is still incredibly freaking fast. I mean, now we could look at when X was released in 2013, and just looking at the 2005 F-22 Raptor, which could travel regularly at Mach 1.5, that comes out to roughly 1,111 miles per hour, or 1,787 kilometers an hour, which those are rated to carry weight many times heavier than what Charizard is. Gotta admit, X got the dragon typing that Charizard deserved, but Y gets speeds beyond imagination, and I say that, and there are some Pokemon that still go faster than this, I have to admit, but this is while flying. And as time has kind of passed, Y kind of looks cooler to me, but X has so much better coloring. The blue flames are incredibly hard to beat with just the blackish coloring that it has over its scales. It's so good. So instead of getting into a form of debate back and forth, go ahead and defend. Which one do you like more? How about we increase the number of wrinkles in our brain and talk about Mega Alakazam? Its mustache turns white and now it gains a full beard. The armor-like sections have become bulkier, its upper body seems to become shorter as its stomach gets kind of revealed now, and it also gains an oval red organ in the center of its forehead, which is said to emit psychic power. It really decided to not only skip leg day, arm day, core day, whatever else, even cardio, as everything else has become so much skinnier, but its head has continued to get bigger, and it gets smarter because it chose to work out at the library. And as if that all wasn't enough, it gains 3 additional spoons, which levitate in the air. And yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know why it decides it has to have spoons. It's silly, it's goofy, I love it, keep it in. If somehow, Gen 20 comes out and I'm, some sort of old man just wanting to talk about Pokemon still, then I want it to have 500 spoons. Make it a spoon. Make Alakazam a singular spoon, and then make it so that Alakazam is being levitated by a giant spoon. I want it to be like, what is it? The Smacks Frog or whatever that just has a giant spoon. What mascot has that? I'm going to show it on screen. Now, all this mega energy and all the energy it has in general, instead of it being applied to its body, which is now weaker and weaker in terms of muscle strength, has instead been applied to its brain as it is converted to pure psychic energy. I mean, realistically speaking, Alakazam was already growing weaker and its head was getting so big that it actually had to use its own psychic energy to hold its head up to begin with, so I'm not too surprised by that. But with all of that psychic energy, it can now read the course of a person's entire life in a single glance. Makes sense why its ability is Trace, as it is able to follow the lines of your life from beginning to end. It is said that when an attack misses it, it is because it was reading its opponent's every move. Honestly speaking, I love its design. Doesn't change it much. It doesn't need to. It's a wise old wisdom thing. What animal is this thing supposed to be? Okay, it's just humanoid. It's just humanoid. Okay, I just wasn't sure. I had like a lapse in judgment. I could memorize all this other information, and then I have a lapse in like, what is this? Look, if I ever get my hands on a Mega Alakazam, I'm just gonna accept the fact that I'm gonna die at the age of 83 in 2082 on September 13th due to complications regarding the lack of electrolytes within my body and a heart attack ultimately. That is also, you know, by the way, like that is not entirely false. There is a potential that that could actually happen. I do have an electrolyte deficiency, believe it or not. Also, I have no idea why, but I forgot that my family had a guinea pig when I was at the age of 21. No trauma to my knowledge, just kind of completely forget. They had it for multiple months. So maybe Alakazam can help me with that one. Anywho, you're not safe wherever you go when this Pokemon is about. It can see through parallel dimensions and hunt you without you ever knowing it has its eyes set on you with Mega Gengar. Its body now sinks into the ground and its arms and tail lengthen. A third eye now opens upon its forehead, unblinking, yellow, and able to see into other dimensions. It has the ability to access these dimensions, and it has a very vicious nature. It has no interest in opponents unless it perceives them as prey. Its relationships are warped due to Mega Evolution, and it now desires to take and curse the life of anyone or anything in its path. It may even curse its own trainer. It sinks into another dimension while waiting for a chance to attack, and it doesn't have to completely exit from that dimension either that it's watching you from. It could simply let out a leg or arm, and it's lights out for you. Which helps make sense why Shadow Tag is its ability, because there is no escape. You cannot run from this Pokemon. There is nowhere for you to go that it cannot see you. You are not escaping from Mega Gengar. Of course, personally, I love this Mega. It gives it shiny a proper send-off, like a proper mwah coloration that Gengar always deserved, instead of feeling like it was dropped in the washing machine with hot water and left for a little bit too long, fading it out. No. A proper coloration. And honestly, this opens up a couple things for my brain, because I wonder what dimensions it could have gone through, because it's implied that it can go through multiple different dimensions. I also wonder if Palkia, you know, being the creator or keeper of space, has any problems with Mega Gengar doing this at all. Or maybe if one day we'll actually get to see where Mega Gengar may just somehow naturally occur in other dimensions because of it traveling between them. When we look at its third eye, though, the third eye is a representation of mystical intuition and insight, an inner vision and enlightenment beyond what the physical eyes can see. It is traditionally depicted as being located in the middle of the forehead. This is also often associated with the god Shiva, who is the god of destruction, and no, not evil destruction, kind of more like just like general destruction. If you want to be a weeb and think about it that way, think about Beerus. Before creation comes destruction. You know, that whole thing that he has going on there. And it's just basically a balancing act. All things derive from what has already been created. Think of it like the law of conservation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only converted from one form of energy to another, which is very interesting considering Mega powers. So, even though I love my goofy boy, as you can see up here, unfortunately, he's a bit of a menace. Time to send your child out to fight for you with Mega Kangaskhan. While the mother goes unchanged, the baby temporarily grows and gains some new features. Raised patches on its body, spike growths on the ears, and it is now feisty, hates to lose, and will boldly challenge its opponents to protect its mother. Now, the mother's happiness over its child's growth is a source of its additional or her additional strength. However, it feels uneasy about the child's future because its child is only skilled at fighting and nothing else. It is also saddened by this reminder that one day their child will grow up and leave. So basically it just sounds like your average parent. except now it's worried that their kid will become a delinquent possibly. I mean, this is just classic worry within parenting, and it is very interesting to see Mega Kangaskhan gain additional power, not through Mega Evolution in terms of the mother's case, but instead through its bond or her bond with its child. Feats beyond oneself's normal capabilities are seen time and time again when trying to protect the ones that they love. And just because I can, we have a kangaroo Pokemon here. A great example of exactly this parallel or this situation would be when the guy fought a kangaroo to protect his dog. But we're not done yet, because now we're going to start getting some deep mental science of all of this, and some of this was done on stream. So if you ever want to be a part of the research, just keep an eye out for my Pokemon research streams that I do. I don't always schedule them, but I always stream on Wednesdays and Fridays. Come join along. I like to interact with people. We can explain the new strength as being derived from the mother trying to protect the child as they fight together, as described from National Geographic in terms of what is called hysterical strength. These feats are made possible by a rush of adrenaline and by unlocking bodily systems in muscle capacity that are only fully accessed in moments of extreme duress. Research shows there are multiple inherent safeguards that specifically prevent muscles from being overloaded. During an emergency, however, Lynch explains that these safeguards can be overridden to enable the instantaneous recruitment of the largest and fastest muscle fibers needed for explosive force and power, and for the muscle's true potential to be realized. To explain this further and how this is attained through the brain, I did look more stuff up from National Geographic themselves, as I quote more. Fight or flight responses like these originate in the amygdala, a complex brain structure which processes your experiences for their emotional content, says Donald Katz, a psychologist, and behavioral neuroscientist at Brandeis University in Massachusetts. He explains that when this structure is confronted by a stressor, it sends a distress signal to an area of the brain called the hypothalamus. Bear with me, I know it's a long quote, but this is all super important in regards to trying to just explain this scientifically. The hypothalamus is like a command center for the autonomous nervous system. The nervous system has two divisions known as the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. These systems control multiple involuntary bodily functions, including cardiovascular and respiratory performance, and the constriction and dilation of key blood vessels and small airways in the lungs. When a stress response is activated in the hypothalamus, neurotransmitters are released from neurons throughout the body and are sent to the adrenal glands, which are located on top of both kidneys. So, basically, while our parent Pokemon is likely freaking out about a number of different things, we alternatively have the possibility that the child is just being a psychopath. So again, the mother, adrenaline, adrenal glands, boom, everything's going, hysterical strength because her kid might be in danger at any given point, there's worry because the kid's gonna grow up, worry about it being a delinquent, there's just adrenaline going, right? Worry and adrenaline and anxiety going through the mother's brain. So, while the parent is likely freaking out, allowing that adrenaline to course through them, giving them additional power, whether that be through love, affection, or even just general anxiety, we alternatively have the possibility that the child is just being a psychopath. And I don't mean that to just be a meme. That is quite literally a possibility. Because while streaming, Chat and I were trying to figure out a logical reasoning behind these strengths and behaviors. As we went down the line, Joe Heron brought to my attention the amygdala, giving the following information that we would source from raisingchildren.net.au. This pruning process begins in the back of the brain. The front part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is remodeled last. The prefrontal cortex is the decision-making part of the brain. It's responsible for your child's ability to plan and think about the consequences of actions, solve problems, and control impulses. Changes in this part of the brain continue into early adulthood. Because the prefrontal cortex is still developing, preteens and teenagers might rely on a part of the brain called the amygdala to make decisions and solve problems more than adults do. The amygdala is associated with emotions, impulses, aggression, and instinctive behavior, which this in turn explains little baby Kangaskhan's monstrous, combative, emotionally charged towards thankfulness for its mother's protection, but wanting to protect the mother in return behavior. Though, again, take all of that with a grain of salt because we have no idea how the brain actually develops in a Pokemon, nor do we know how it exactly develops in a kangaroo, and I did not want to look that up because as soon as I just said that, right now I immediately started thinking about maybe it does, because maybe it does develop similarly because mammals, I don't know, that's a whole other rabbit hole that maybe I'll go down one day. Although we could look at Primeape, which just gets so angry that it evolves. But at the same time, when we look at Primeape, it's because it has a heart attack. Because it already states that its brain is protected. So ultimately, we just get this broken 2-time hitting every single turn helicopter mama and instinctively fighting baby child. Time to take one of the scariest looking bug Pokemon of all time and give it the ability to fly, because why not? Mega Pinsir. This Pokemon makes itself reminiscent of Scarabs and gains some big ol' yellow veiny wings. Also with some brown elytra, which, no, that's not just a Minecraft thing, that is literally just some hardened wing covers in order to protect the wings themselves. Slicing through each elytron is a pair of orange blades. Its arms become longer and it has a T-shaped spike on each forearm. Don't hug this thing, you will feel like you fell into a spike pit trap. The pincers are now longer with larger spikes on it, and its eyes are now yellow. When it mega evolves, it is actually left in a constant state of excitement. It rarely touches the ground now due to its new ability to fly, which it flies at approximately 30 miles per hour, 50 kilometers an hour, and uses its 2 large horns to pierce its enemies before shredding them. It can lift opponents up to 10 times heavier than itself with its horns and still fly around easily. I'm going to repeat that last word for you. Easily. So it can lift more than whatever 10 times its weight is, which we'll get to. Because it is actually noted in the Ultra Sun Pokédex to potentially actually be incredibly happy to be flying, which is why it doesn't ever touch the ground. And what helps with that ability is that it has all of its normal attacks converted into flying attacks. Now, it is 5'7", 1.7 meters, and has a weight of 130 pounds, 59 kilograms, which means that it can lift 1,301 pounds or 590 kilograms easily and still fly. Not a single one of you will be safe if this thing decided to pick you up and skewer you and then go and pick someone else up for that matter. That is not its full limit. It is just terrifying. So let's put this whole thing into perspective as to just how big an object it can actually pick up. As per M. Steinert and Sons, concert grand pianos are usually from 7'4" up to 9'6" in length, though some go even longer. Approximate weights being 900 to 1,200 pounds, though some are as heavy as 1,400 pounds. Also, moose can weigh up to 1,500 pounds if male. And those are some pretty freaking big animals. I've seen one in person in America. One in a zoo when I was like 15 or 16. It's massive. Their horns alone are huge. They're scary. Moosin are scary. I know the plural of moose is not moosin, but I'm gonna say moosin just to irritate whoever this irritates. So yeah, just imagine a flying concert piano or flying moose being carried by a 5'7" scarab beetle. As if that is not terrifying in and of itself. Becoming not longer, but instead gaining some thickness, we got Mega Gyarados. Fins gaining a yellow tint, underbelly becoming black, and even gaining some red coloration in some of its scales. The raised scales somehow help propel it through the water, and doesn't seem like it'd be very aerodynamic. Water dynamic? Thermo? What would that be? Hydrodynamic? Oh yeah, it would be hydrodynamic. I'm ashamed of myself. Now, most of its other fins disappear, being replaced by 2 rows of blue spikes, with additional yellow spikes near its tail fin. Due to the stress of Mega Evolution on its body, it becomes even more ferocious than before, as if a month of straight rampaging, able to end the conflict between 2 warring parties, isn't enough. All other brain functions cease when Mega Evolution occurs, except for the destructive drive to burn down anything into cinders. Despite its brain having a powerful destructive instinct, it will still obey a trainer it truly trusts. It can launch itself at Mach speed by using its orifices to release water from both sides. Yes, both sides. Yes. With this speed, it is able to cleave large ships in two, just running straight through them. So, I mean, the ability Mold Breaker makes sense. What move or ability is really going to be able to stop that type of attack? When you have that much power, nothing is stopping you in your place. Now, it is tied with Hoopa Unbound as the tallest dark type Pokemon. And because of my chat during the stream, thank you, Annie Stone, for our patriotic land is free singing Big Mac devouring Americans with Gyarados coming out to 21 feet 4 inches, and because we refuse to use the metric system, willing to measure anything in any other form of measurement, unit or otherwise, we are going to measure this thing in Big Macs out of spite. The average Big Mac height amounts to 3.6 inches. Convert Gyarados to pure inches at 160, and we have the height of 44.4 Big Macs. Yeah! Though, coming back down to Earth, the more we think about it, the more we could potentially see that the medulla could be the final and only place where Gyarados' brain is still on and running. This is the part of the brain, according to Cleveland Clinic, that runs or is a part of breathing, swallowing, heart circulation, nerve connections, automatic processes such as coughing, sneezing, vomiting, maintaining balance, intestinal movements, larynx muscles, movements of neck and upper back so that you can turn your head or even shrug your shoulders and even stick out your tongue. Then let's confirm it further, as they had a frequently asked questions section that asked if the medulla controls aggressive behavior. They answer it stating, no, your medulla doesn't control aggressive behavior, anger, or similar emotions. Those emotions rely on two other areas of your brain, particularly your limbic system, which your medulla's only role in aggression is how it manages your heart rate, your breathing, and other autonomic processes, which could be used to explain why it is willing to listen to a trainer it truly trusts. It doesn't think about whether it trusts the trainer or not. It doesn't think about it. It doesn't have to. It just automatically does, which might just be a little bit of a stretch to assume its instinct is to do that, but it could help us at least get onto the right path of explaining its behavior. We could take a better look at its origins, as its Mega Evolution does draw additional inspiration from it, specifically looking at the Koi Nobori, and when it comes to its inspirations, it is looking at the fins of the Koi Nobori. I messed that sentence up like 5 times. In addition, it does look very similar to the legendary water Pokemon shown in the anime, which may have inspired it. And because I can't state it any better than the way Bulbapedia has already stated it, on December 2018, the beta sprite for Gyarados was showcased as the NHK broadcast in Japan, bearing the resemblance of a worm-like body with a mouthful of sharp teeth, barbells on the top of its head, and multiple fins on the side of its body. The inspiration for this original design may be related to the myth of Namazu, or Onamazu, from 16th century Japan. Namazu was known as a catfish that was said to destroy cities with earthquakes and appears during times of human conflict, much like Gyarados' Pokédex entries in the original first 2 generations of games. Namazu's history as a mythos is also directly tied to Lake Biwa, the real-life version of the Lake of Rage, where said earthquakes were said to occur. This idea was later replaced with the Dragon Gate myth and rehashed in Generation 3 as the inspiration for Wishcash, appropriately named Namazun. I felt really weird doing an accent and then having to read Japanese words. But of course, I had to read a little bit more on yokai.com, which we have used many times before, about the Onamazu in order to just get a better understanding of all of this. Finding that even other yokai would actually band together to try and stop its thrashing, which I thought Thrash was Gyarados' signature move for the longest time, when apparently it wasn't, and I was wrong, oddly enough. It's really weird, because I could have sworn I would have... We are in the Berenstain universe, not the Berenstein universe, and Gyarados no longer has Thrash as its signature move. Gyarados here marks the first Pokemon where Mega Evolution causes negative side effects to its health whether that be physical, mental, or otherwise. The first point for all of it then goes to the dark types, as Mega Gyarados is a water dark type. Its eyes turn green, parts of its body turn to stone and extend. This is what researchers believe Aerodactyl looked like before it was fossilized. Mega Aerodactyl. It grows larger and sprouts jagged, black, spiky rocks all over its body, and the spikes it already has also turn stony. Rocky plates protect parts of its body as all of its dormant genes awaken. Some of the rocks are harder than diamond, and it is now fiercer and more irritable and vicious than before. Some scholars claiming that this is because the excess power is causing it pain, since the evolution is a burden on its body. The pain causes irritability that causes it to be more vicious and attack anything that moves. My only question is, why does it look like a classic villain with a goatee? Actually, more fitting, Goldmember from Austin Powers. You know, this thing was already described as having saw blade-like teeth. Why did you have to make it any scarier? Why did you have to actually see the Mega Stone and be like, let me Mega Evolve it? What's the worst that could happen? It only rampaged as a regular Aerodactyl so many years ago. Would be fine. It also gets tough claws, which we've already talked about before, due to all the hardening it has done. Phrasing. Mewtwo, the only other current Pokemon that has 2 Mega forms. It is also one of the few Pokemon that can Mega Evolve on its own. Let's talk about its X form first, as it is bulkier and has longer V-shaped horns that curve upward. It also has tubes behind its neck, its eyes are light blue, and it has purple growths over its shoulders. Its tail has become shorter and stiffer, now gaining a curled tip, and now it augments its muscles with psychic power, giving it a grip strength of 1 ton and the ability to sprint 100 meters in 2 seconds. We're gonna put that into perspective. So, that is 50 meters a second, 60 seconds in a minute puts us at 3,000 meters a minute, 60 minutes, oh my gosh, 60 minutes in an hour puts us at 180,000 meters an hour, which is 180 kilometers an hour, or 111.847 miles per hour. It is instantly going from 0 to over 100 in 2 seconds. Which explains why Steadfast is its ability, because anytime it flinches, it just gets faster, speeding up, making up for that lost speed, that lost time where it could have just been zooming. In battle, it has been seen to actually stretch out its arms and legs, augmenting those muscles further, and overall, with this fighting psychic type Pokemon, I can only think of Mob Psycho 100. I mean, the whole time we get to see our main character talk about not wanting to use, you know, psychic power to actually augment his own muscles, even though he could do it. And there's a bunch of other characters who decide to do that anyway, and a bunch of really cool scenes in it. I love Mob Psycho 100, same creator as One Punch Man, and honestly, amazing story, 3 seasons. Why is my dog snoring? My baby! Honestly, great show, highly recommend it. It's only 3 seasons long. It's unfortunate that due to problems, the English voice actor decided to take a step away. But if you're willing to listen to it all in Japanese and read the subtitles at the bottom, really fantastic. And the intros are a banger. As for its Y form, it does do the opposite, getting smaller, lighter, and getting a long head tentacle thing in place of its tail. Fit with 2 horns and a half ring as part of its head, like a circlet almost. Its eyes are now red and a bit larger. It now has a phenomenal mental power and is capable of smashing skyscrapers to smithereens with just a thought. Over 100 stories gone. That's a lot of power from something that just looks like an embryo. And of course, since it's so smart, it has insomnia from all the overthinking that big brain of it does. And yes, there is a correlation between intelligence and anxiety, as stated by National Library of Medicine in 2012. Patients with GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, reported significantly more worry, exhibited higher IQ scores, and showed reduced concentrations of choline-containing compounds in the subcortical white matter voxels. Which brings us to something that's very important. Mewtwo can Mega Evolve of its own accord. Not like how Rayquaza does, which we will cover later, but purely of its own accord, with or without Mega Stones. Though, again, the Rayquaza thing might be a little bit argued later, especially with some potential new information that got out, which, at least talking about canonical released information, we have to assume that there was at least some sort of bond created before Blaine attempted to make up for what he had done wrong by taking Mewtwo in. You know, he did help create Mewtwo after all. This bond could, by all means, be simply towards itself. Alternatively, the amount of effort that went into Mewtwo could also be considered a bond, but not one originally of happiness, as you would expect. Though, we did mention it earlier. We talked about it with Colress, that an immense amount of power can come from Pokemon when they are enraged, drawing out their full potential that way. Pair this with Mewtwo being a creature of rage and anger due to how it was created through hatred, essentially, and how it is incredibly intelligent and self-aware, and you have the perfect concoction for a Pokemon to simply go beyond its normal form on its own through its own form of Mega Evolution. After all, I really do consider the Mega Stones as primarily a catalyst for the infinite energy within a Pokemon and any bonds it may have. It's a new day because it was hot in my office and I got incredibly tired, and I want to give you the best I can give you in terms of energy. So this is a perfect opportunity to shell out my merch, because I have a wonderful merch store, and right now I'm wearing Everything is Weak to Bear, amongst other merch that you'll see right here, right now, all available on Teespring. If you want to get yourself something nice, you might as well throw some money at it. I get a nice little $3. I try to keep things nice and cheap, low cost, not low quality, so that way you don't have to spend every bit of money you have, because I don't want to spend every dollar I have getting, you know, merch of my favorite people that I like to watch. So why should you, in my opinion? So it kicks a little bit back towards me, but primarily it just gets you some nice merch. And this one's from one of my favorite Nuzlocke of all time, where we had Banette, the wonderful Pokemon fusion. You can go view that Nuzlocke right here. It's a randomized Nuzlocke, so go have fun after this video. Back to this video though. L'Oreal is here with Luscious Locks, and another Pokemon that has Mold Breaker, as Ampharos turns into an electric dragon mega Pokemon. Toes turn black, and it also gains plenty of wool for its tail, not just for that hair. Its genes manipulated by Mega Evolution, which also awoke long sleeping dragon blood. And as it increases the electrical energy within itself, the red orbs on its tail emit strong light. There should be no shocker here that there's some Chinese dragon levels of inspiration here with the way that even that fur, or rather that wool, is presented before us, or even those little orbs. Now, I wish there was more to say here, but honestly, it's a simple but effective Mega Evolution that I genuinely love. I call it L'Oreal for a reason. I mean, look at those locks. Great Pokemon, simple upgrade, moving on. A Pokemon that I made a short of that I love to this very day because I love to quote it and the things that were said in it. Mega Scizor. We do have another Pokemon here in Scizor that suffers from the excess amount of Mega energy being put through it. Its pincers lengthen and develop serrations, perfect for tearing apart prey. Honestly, if it really wanted to, it could stab straight through concrete with those pincers. There is no way of escape if you are caught, so you're just suffering until it just decides to finish crunching you into nothingness. It does gain some extra armor, and its legs actually end up becoming more like spikes. Kind of like, you think of like Dexter's Laboratory characters. The problem here, though, is that its body cannot thermoregulate. Basically, it can't regulate heat coursing through its body. Meaning, as it fights, it generates heat, becoming warmer with no way to sweat, cool itself off, or anything else. Even if it tries to beat its wings, it's not enough, as it would when it was regular Scizor. Which, in turn, all this will begin to cause its body to melt, losing the strength to wield its heavy pincers in the process. So, the longer the fight goes, the worse it gets for Mega Scizor, because eventually it won't even be able to lift its arms anymore. And again, while those pincers are perfect for ripping prey to shreds, it actually just prefers to deck people instead. Just punch after punch after punch. And that's probably reminiscent from the fact that regular Scizor does that anyway, and its claws kind of remind me of boxing gloves, not just like little crab claws. Ironically, it does have the ability Light Metal, which halves its weight down, which is probably because as it fights, all that metal on its body is slowly melting off, making it lighter and lighter and lighter, easier for its body to move, but unable to wield those pincers. As if being bulky wasn't enough, Mega Heracross gets a bigger horn, a shorter nose, large antennae, and a fist that looks like cannons as its exoskeletal shell on the upper side of its arm opens up, revealing a segmented yellow skin layer filled with holes which let air enter and exit from its forearms. This is primarily done when it executes multi-attack moves, as the claws simultaneously detract, and instead ammunition of all kinds are fired from those holes where the claws were. And with its ability Skill Link, it is not only a rapid fire process where it's shooting thousands of ammunition of whatever it chooses at you, but it's also incredibly accurate, as it guarantees 5 strikes on the multi-attack moves. Mind you, 5 is the maximum that those multi-attack moves can hit, for now. It also suffers from a high body temperature, but it can open the shells of its arms and torso to allow heat to escape. Makes sense. If there's more pressure, there's a very good chance that it's just going to end up increasing heat in there as well. And now it can lift objects up to 500 times its own weight between its horns. The drawback is that it will have muscular soreness once it goes back to normal from its mega form. So let's do a little bit of math here with how much it can lift. So Mega Heracross weighs 137.8 pounds or 62.5 kilograms. When we multiply that out 500 times, we get 68,900 pounds or 31,250 kilograms. According to the National World War II Museum's website, the M4 Sherman, a medium-class tank, weighed 68,000 pounds. You know, only the most commonly used tank from the Americans in the war. This honestly makes me want to cover, like, war in Pokemon overall so badly. I'm trying to hold out for Legends ZA, but there's a very good chance I won't be able to, and I'm just gonna have to make a, here's everything we know about the Kalos War and everything else, all the other wars that exist in Pokemon, and then update it when ZA comes out. If you can't tell, I'm a little obsessed with ZA right now because of the sheer amount of lore implications that there are. And yes, I will be streaming me playing Legends ZA when it comes out. I will probably just run a 12-hour stream, and it's not gonna matter. My life for that day will be put on pause, and I'm going to stream it. So catch it here on YouTube. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Fit with ability solar power to make special attacks hit harder while sacrificing its health in harsh sunlight, Mega Houndoom, who in fact does burn with a fire so strongly that its claws turn a dark red hue as they generate more heat, causing pain to this Pokemon. But it doesn't stop there, as its entire body generates powerful heat, and the fiery breath it exhales will burn foes to ashes. Its tail splits down the middle like a pitchfork, and the bone-like ridges have expanded further to create a full armor on its upper body, making it look as though it has this big ol' intimidating just skull for a chest. The restraint-like bones that are on its forelegs have been broken, and the ones on the back legs have completely vanished, almost like shackles being released from this Pokemon. Now, it's important to also consider with this Pokemon that regular Houndoom would use a combination of fire that had poison within it to kill its foes, its prey, or otherwise. Meanwhile, now we have Mega Houndoom, whose fire is powerful enough just to incinerate foes. So that's a pretty big difference, as it now has an extreme amount of heat at its disposal. And attacks as regular Houndoom were already considered and called the Call of the Grim Reaper. So very fitting that we have this Heckhound here that is really ready to just raise Earth. I hope you were tired of Pokemon that have so much power that it actually hurts them as they are unable to contain it, because now we have Mega Tyranitar. This kaiju gets more gaps in its armor, and from the front it simply looks like it gains a plentiful number of branch-like spikes. Mind you, it also gains nearly 2 whole feet or half a meter, and a bit over 100 pounds, 50 kilograms. Its blue scales turning red as they seethe with energy, allowing it to emanate more power. Its tail does lengthen as well, but all this is only to provide more destructive power to this rampaging demon, because the overwhelming power of Mega Evolution has caused its back to split open, its instincts kicking in, becoming so destructive that it may not even hear its trainer anymore. Adrenaline pumping, it hears nothing. For those of you, my fellow people, I have tinnitus. If you have tinnitus, you know what it is. Just imagine that high-pitched ring in your ears and you hear nothing else. Honestly, in my opinion, it feels like as if something hatched from Tyranitar. I mean, it goes from larva to pupa to Tyranitar. I mean, it does go into its cocoon, and who's to say that that would be its final form? Thus, we have its Mega, and its Mega's back just splits open. Now, I am going to quote directly from the Pokédex. Due to the colossal power poured into it, this Pokemon's back split right open. Its destructive instincts are the only thing keeping it moving. It is literally only alive because of its instinct, because of adrenaline, because the Mega power that is coursing through it, while it is technically keeping it alive right now, has effectively killed Tyranitar. It is a living, empty shell, bent on destruction, with power too incredible for it to control. Our dark types really get the short end of the stick in all of Pokemon when it comes to their Mega Evolutions. And honestly, this might be the saddest one to me. And you can look at its model and be like, oh, it still has its back. Oh, it's fine. That red part, remember, that's its core. That is like effectively its spine. Like, let's make this a little bit more sad, because after all, the idea behind Mega Evolution is that you trust your partner enough to Mega Evolve because of your bond. And then as you Mega Evolve, because you are a Tyranitar, your body splits open, your spine is exposed to the outside world, and it causes you to be unable to control yourself, and the sheer amount of energy going through you, or the sheer amount of sand streaming from your body as you're just overwhelmed across the board. And yes, it does have Sandstream as its ability. The only way to make sure that your body doesn't suffer the same fate is to move. To move and use up the energy, rampage with every ounce of power you have in hopes to survive. Use up that energy. Or die. Fast, faster, yet faster. Mega Blaziken's feathers shift to be more like wings on its head and chest. A horn protrudes from the center of its forehead, and flames trace through the air like ribbons from its wrists. It always took pride in its kicks, and it continues to develop them further with flurries of savage kicks in its new form. Moving so fast that its legs begin to burn from the friction of the atmosphere itself. And with the ability Speed Boost, each round it survives, it just gets faster and faster and faster, kicking with more fury and speed, its body temperature increasing all the while. Now, I want you to swing your hand through the air. Just, alright. Do it again, but do it faster. Takes more effort. I want you to imagine doing that in the water, okay? Whatever you're feeling, whatever force you're feeling, not from within your arm, but against your hand, that is the resistance. The force that acts in the opposite direction to your movement, slowing you down. The resistance, the slowing down of it against your will, is essentially friction that is created as you or an object collides with other molecules. The more resistance there is, the more power you put to move through it, the more friction, basically. In other words, you're getting your drag force. Thank you, all of our physics nerds. And yes, it is more complicated than that, but I really don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it and relive my physics class, even though it was a solid class, honestly. I can't complain about it. But, centripetal force is forever burned into my brain. To give you an idea of just how fast Mega Blaziken is moving, though, let's break this down further and give some more examples. I have to talk about objects and weather because it would be incredibly unethical to test this on a human, especially as we are basically asking how fast do you have to move before wind starts to rip your body apart molecule by molecule from your skin down to your bones, because that's basically what will effectively be happening to Blaziken if it continues to move until it dies, right? Because as speed increases, air resistance increases. More molecules in a smaller amount of time. This is like running through the rain. You're getting hit by more rain in a shorter time because you are moving faster. And if you've ever been in a storm, the wind and rain moving at incredible speeds, you may have felt the sting of a water droplet that would have otherwise been barely noticeable in a normal rainstorm. When we start getting into like full windstorms, into tornadoes and hurricanes, the extreme storms can actually cause a splinter of wood to pierce through concrete. Once again, more speed, more power, more resistance, right? And you just keep overcoming that. The way this negative outcome is resisted is through making something more streamlined, more aerodynamic, like the chunk of wood that was more like a splinter, more like a spear, or alternatively, an airplane wing, because it pushes air molecules to the side as the airplane can pass by them. Yes, big plane do small molecule thing. And what do we see in Mega Blaziken? Exactly that. Its feathers are pushed back, rounded, more like wings. Yes, it probably looks like it's pushed back because it's moving fast, and so they wanted to design it to make it look like it's fast, so it has, like, its features are pushed back. That's a very simple way to effectively show that in terms of design in one image, but at the same time, it's also an assistance in streamlining this Pokemon for its own effectiveness. But despite all of these physical changes, it continues to move so incredibly fast that it is basically causing the air to sandpaper its entire body down as it continues to fight. Pretty brutal. If you heard that crinkle, that was this boy right here. Ain't that right? Ain't that right, Jaeger? Ain't that... Don't smack me in the face, please. Are you camera shy? Are you camera shy, buddy? Oh, he doesn't want to be up here. Well, I'm not a fan of the Ralts line, don't at me, and it has nothing to do with you heathens out there whose favorite number is 34. I just never had a personal connection with it. I will at least state that Mega Gardevoir redeems the line in my eyes, especially as it's shiny and the idea behind the Embrace Pokemon is actually phenomenal. It gains a full ballroom dress or potentially a bridal gown with glove-like additions to its arms, gaining spikes that curl upward on its face, framing it, shorter, more curled hair, and the horn on its chest has now opened up, said to be the physical manifestation of its heart. Now able to use tremendous psychic power now that it is open, and its ability Pixelate turns all normal moves into fairy moves, kind of like a fairy tale wedding. Now, let's break this one down a little bit. Because if we look at regular Gardevoir, it is a guardian angel of sorts, its power reaching its peak when protecting its trainer. I mean, even its name can be broken down and you get guard out of it. Now, it's always ready to protect people or Pokemon to the point where it even sleeps standing up. Thank you, Pokemon Sleep. Kirlia is the emotion Pokemon. Ralts is the feeling Pokemon. So you get feelings, emotions, and embrace. And not just embrace in the form of a hug, but in the idea of a sign of affection or willing support. To embrace ideas, to accept them. Now, this Pokemon does that in full. Its heart is opening up, allowing it pure, full, absolute access to the power within that is fueled by its care for others, willing to even sacrifice its own life as the guardian angel that it is. And that is what makes me look at Gardevoir with respect. Because, yeah, it is actually an incredibly good idea, a fantastic concept across the board, and it's done effectively. So yeah, don't mind me just taking this Pokemon and turning it back into the pure and wholesome creature that it was meant to be. There's a yokai in the house, and I recommend you don't approach it because we have Mega Mawile. It now has 2 jaws protruding from the back of its head, and both seem to have spiky tufts of hair. These jaws are controlled independently. Its legs, which are reminiscent of Hakama, are now longer and in a magenta color. Its arms also look a lot more like sleeves. And if you get too close, lowering your guard, these jaws will rip and tear you apart, thrashing violently in the process. It has an extremely vicious disposition, so it will strike without blinking twice, and you will not survive, as these jaws can turn a boulder to dust in a single bite. Mind you, even when it's not in its mega form, this Pokemon with its 1 jaw could chew through iron beams. Your body is not made of iron. It has gained a whole foot in height, just under half a meter, but has doubled in weight, all with its ability, huge power, which just made it much stronger, doubling its attack stats. There's a lot of dense muscle underneath the surface of this Pokemon. All of this is very reminiscent of the Futakuchiona, a woman with a mouth in the back of her head, and according to yokai.com, Futakuchiona appear as a regular woman until their terrible secret is revealed. In the back of their skulls, buried beneath long, thick hair, is a second mouth, full of teeth and with large, fat lips. This second mouth is ravenous and uses long strands of its hair like tentacles to gorge itself on any food it can find. I don't know why I said some of those words the way that I did, and I apologize. Bulkier and more heavily plated than before, as if being a walking tank wasn't already enough, we now have Mega Aggron. Even taking on more of a samurai look with its body armor and helmet. Oh, by the way, it is said to be able to destroy a steel tank when we look at its information. Don't know why it says this. Who found this out? Because theoretically, this could mean that Megas were being used in full-on modern war. Pokemon, tanks, airplanes, everything. But I digress for now, because honestly, this Pokemon just got a lot thicker more than anything, visually at least, and it really only gained a few inches in height and less than 100 pounds. At least, that's what it looks like on the surface. Because it lost its rock typing and has the ability Heavy Metal, doubling its weight, making it go from 793.7 pounds or 360 kilograms to 1,741.6 pounds or 790 kilograms. Honestly, with enough weight and muscle behind it, it likely uses that perfect horn on its head as leverage to get under the tank like Heracross would and just flip the tank. And this Pokemon can once again overall be related back not to only just these like Shogun-like origins or the Triceratops, but also the Pulgasari, a monster that eats iron in Korean legend. If regular Aggron makes an entire mountain its territory, I wonder what Mega Aggron would do, especially considering Aggron and Tyranitar would get into plenty of fights with each other over, this is my home, I'm going to eat it. I hear you like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so why don't we just leak some of that into our Pokemon and get Mega Medicham with its 4 ghostly arms, which I thought were ribbons at first, so I kept looking for the ghostly arms until, yeah, those are arms. These arms become more realistic, more dexterous, more powerful as its willpower and spirit is strengthened. Like, this is quite literally how JoJo's stands work. I'm not even kidding at this point. The stands in that anime are the manifestations of one's fighting spirit. It does gain a turban as well, its eyes glowing blue with spiritual power, and its ability, Pure Power, doubles its attack stat. Look, again, I'm just saying it's a JoJo's character, and I know I'm not the only one out here saying it. But let's step away from that meme of a, joke and actually say its other true inspirations, one of them likely being Shiva and the fusion of him with his wife Shakti as they become Ardhanari, as they are fit with multiple arms themselves. There is also the jewel at the center of the turban that can relate very much back to the idea of the third eye in my personal opinion, not just like a jeweled turban. And the stance of our dear Pokemon here is very much the same type of stance that would be depicted in many forms of media, relating back to Shaolin monks, while it is also wearing harem pants that is fitted often on genies in media. Which, going back to the Shaolin monk thing, only makes me think of Omi from Shaolin Showdown, which I have no idea what happened to that after all these years. I don't know what the ending of that was. Maybe one day I'll watch it just on my own time, because I'm just curious. I know the Jack Splicer, compilation memes are out there, and I don't know. The only other one I think of when it comes to, because you think of the Shaolin monks, and you think of, the dots that are on their head, would be Krillin from Dragon Ball Z as well, which Those dots on the forehead, let's talk about that real quick, are called the Jiba, an ordination practice where ritual burn scars are received by Buddhist monks of certain traditions, including the Shaolin monks. It is very painful as incense sticks are lit and pressed against the skin to leave a burn mark. There are other ways to do it, but that is one way that they did it. I wanted to find so much more on this, but anything and everything that I found that I delved deeper on was not actually reliable, or it was in a language that I could not get, like, translated out accurately at all. No, I do not know other languages. I just, you know, if you know sentence structure and you can break things down bit by bit, you can translate things as an amateur. Just be careful doing so. And ultimately, the reason why I don't want to talk about it too much is because I don't want to misspread information willingly. I will at least say this, because apparently, in December 1983, the Buddhist Association of China, the official Chinese government body that oversees Buddhism in China, decreed that Jieba was a ritual practice which was not of Buddhist origin, and since it was damaging to the health, was abolished forthwith. So, that makes any information I find potentially incorrect regarding this subject, especially as this dates back to at least the Chinese Yuan dynasty, which was between the year 1279 and 1368, according to the Smithsonian Institution. So at least that's accurate. So, whatever. I will say, this Mega form at least has made me love Medicham way more than just the original design did alone. Because otherwise, I liked Meditite. Meditite was funny little chestnut monkey looking thing, right? I did a little chestnut on its head. But like, Medicham just missed the mark for me. I don't know what it was. It just really missed the mark. And then here comes Mega Medicham, swing in with 6 arms, being amazing. And that was before I even, like, sat down and knew all of this information. I just liked its design. And then I think I was on stream one day when somebody told me, hey, JoJo's character is literally Mega Medicham, and I lost my mind as they told me more and more about it, which was amazing. So, you know, I love it. It's gone way up for me. And I think it's important to understand that not every Pokemon is meant to appeal to every single person. Unless you're a Gengar, then you're just loved by everybody. Okay, time for one that I forgot had a Mega until I started doing this research with Mega Manectric. With a much larger and more lightning bolt-like mane that extends to its tail, we have Manectric fit with longer spikes on either side. The fur on its haunches are now blue and have thinner points, all while losing its blue tail that it had. Its speed is said to be explosive and equal to a lightning bolt. Its body is so full to the brim with incredible electricity that it is unable to control it all, thereby irritating it. I won't show it here because it's gruesome, but all I can imagine is the Boys episode right early on where A-Train just, person with super speed, runs straight through another human being. That is what I imagine with this Pokemon. But now, we have Mega Manectric, who can very easily do exactly that. It has horns, and the inability to control itself as it creates boom after boom after boom with every movement that it makes, traveling at 270,000 miles per hour or 434,522.88 kilometers an hour. You know, the speed of a lightning strike. If I got the conversion right, that is Mach 351. Mind you, according to International Association of Physics Students, IAPS, the highest speed ejection ever recorded was at 1,300 miles per hour, which is superseded by the Dark Star by a huge margin of 6,700 miles per hour. Hitting Mach 10 speeds at sea level will eventually smash the organs and skeleton of the pilot, turning the human body into a bag of soup. I'm gonna say it here and now. Anything Mega Manectric touches is going to be instantly vaporized, as long as it makes contact with them. Not touching will be fine. It's not gonna make a big deal. But I will also state there's a very good chance Mega Manectric will probably be evaporated as well, but not guaranteed. Honestly though, the resulting impact would theoretically be more powerful than the strike of lightning. The sound of it would be louder as well. I mean, we have more mass. I mean, lightning does not have mass, to my knowledge. And I'll be real, if there's anybody else that's close enough to the impact of Mega Manectric and whatever it hits, there's a very good chance at minimum. I did not do the math on this. I don't even know how to do the math on this one, but I would dare say anybody within 100-foot radius, 100 feet's kind of large. We'll say anybody within a 20-foot radius will get evaporated as well, or at least critically injured to death with bones left behind. That is how powerful I believe that impact would be. But take that with a grain of salt, honestly. Honestly, the only way I can give you a proper visual understanding of what this would be like is I can't find any converters. I can't think of anything that would work that way. I can't figure any of it out for like multi-step converters that would get me there, or any extra math or science or anything. So just take this video that is not gruesome in any way of a lightning bolt striking near somebody. That is the absolute baseline for how powerful Manectric would be. Mega Manectric slamming into something. Gaining more zippers than a Kingdom Hearts character, we have Mega Banette. Regular Banette always stated that it kept its zippers closed so that none of its cursed energy escapes. Well, now it has 3 zippers wide open, revealing claws and legs. And honestly, the more I look at it, the more I really do believe that it just looks like a Kingdom Hearts character. You know, like one of the human nobodies, cloak and all. Also, it has so much power and vindictiveness from being left behind as a doll that it can't help but curse its trainer. All of this was originally held back by its closed zippers. It's adept enough at curses that now it has the prankster ability, making it have higher priority, moving faster than others when using status moves. I will also say it's really funny because Banette's Japanese name is Jupeta, which could be a combination of je, meaning curse/spell, and Geppetto, the woodcarver who made Pinocchio, you know, the wooden doll. Honestly, there's not a lot to say here. I think Mega Banette looks sick, despite me joking about it, so hopefully nobody gets butthurt about that. But genuinely, Mega Banette does look really sick, and I need to get myself a Mega Banette, like, doll at some point. Doll? Oh, God. No, plush or something. I don't know. I should not have said doll. That felt weird. Why have one guardian angel when you can have 2? Except this second one is a dog, as we have Mega Absol. The mega energy coursing through its body causes it to get longer fur, making the back of its mane stand on end so that it appears to have wings that are similar to Greek portrayals of sphinxes. But that isn't the only thing it visually resembles, as it is similar to the protective spirit known as the Lamassu, which is an Assyrian creature with a human's head, wings, and sometimes the body of a lion. Giant statues of these creatures were made during Mesopotamian times, and they were regarded as celestial beings. Does anyone else feel like they learned a ton about Mesopotamia in like the 4th grade and then never heard about it again? They're portrayed as a female deity, but it is usually presented with a more masculine head. The female ones are called Apsasu. They were considered protective because they encompass all life within them. And what do we see Absol's head is in the shape of? The Taijitu symbol, which is your yin and yang, which has extended in both directions, giving it a longer horn on one side and a longer flowing locks on the other. This symbol is said to represent female energy through the black parts, characterized by restiveness, receptiveness, passiveness, intuition, creativity, submissiveness, and softness, while the white parts are male energy, characterized by power, logic, enlightenment, dominance, and hardness. Do I need to make a joke here? Do I need to? Also, just a fun little fact about this. Back in the day, because, like, they wanted to put men above women, like, as often as possible in terms of power, in terms of control, and everything else, the masculine part of this in some cultures or some like dynasties, not even dynasties, just people, like where they were, settlements, I don't know, I'm not Preston Garvey, yeah, I'm getting away from it. This symbol was emphasized more on the masculine side, so that way they had like an additional reason to put men above women and put women down, so that way men had more power back in the day. So, not a great thing when you look at the history of it, but the symbol is everywhere, and it's a great idea of balance, which let's talk about it a little bit more here, because as we see the two parts here, there's a little bit of the black in the white and a little bit of the white in the black parts, you know, showing that in order to have balance or to be complete, you need both sides, which is incredibly ironic considering the history of it. Now, again, they cannot exist without each other and is seen as an interpretation of life. All of this relates well back to Absol, who even while bursting with incredible power and energy, despises this form as it hates to fight. It only takes on this form in acceptance of what needs to be done. In addition to its own feelings towards fighting and trying to go against them, it now has Magic Bounce, reflecting any status moves that would be used to try and harm it or those it may try to protect, and converts the energy further into an intimidating aura to deter opponents. This in turn does make those with faint hearts expire from shock, literally die from shock or fear, at the sight of it, literally die. So we have here a pacifist Pokemon with incredible power. So yes, we have a Pokemon that actually despises this form, but otherwise incredibly benefits from it. Alright, I'm going to be super biased with this next one here, as I love the Pokemon themselves, but the Mega Evolutions of Latios and Latias are underwhelming in my personal opinion. But I will absolutely praise them for their aesthetics and the concept for them, because they are aesthetically everything they need to be, maintaining their jet-like appearance and now combining their red and blue colors to a perfect mix of purple. And I will admit now, ever since I've started working on my own thumbnails, creating each and every one of them as I've been going along, I've been learning about complementary colors more and more, and when I just want to get a quick complementary color, a lot of our Pokemon are complementary to each other, whether it be within the design of the Pokemon itself, or if you look at Scizor and Scizor, Scizor, oh my goodness, and they themselves, the green and red, are complementary to each other, which is really cool as an idea. So I would not be surprised if you took the exact hex code of Latios and Latias, mix them together, and you would get the exact hex code of the purple of their mega forms, because they are the same purple. Their entries are very similar in terms of their mega, and there isn't really a lot of story behind them, other than just having the ability to turn mega seemingly without a stone. This could be explained by their background of being worshipped by an ancient civilization after they had saved a child, and their connections to the Soul Dew, which provides them incredible power. Or just simply the fact that Latios could just turn into the Soul Dew. Hooray! For sad Pokemon death! But in all seriousness, they both can reach Mach 4 speeds, though Latios says that it is bigger and faster than Latias, and Latias can make sharper, more agile turns. So, I guess Latios just doesn't reach Mach 5, but it can still reach higher speeds within the Mach 4 range than Latias. That's the only explanation there. Ultimately, I at least need to state this. Information from the games regarding even regular Latios and Latias are not all-encompassing if we want to consider everything that they can do. Because when we look at their movies, they are incredible and have so much more power than they do in the games. Or at least it's implied they have so much more power. So, I don't know. All this ridiculous energy goes somewhere, and they now have mega forms, so hopefully they get a little bit more love in the future, because otherwise, there's so much love for these two Pokemon. How can they not have more lore on them with their mega forms? Also, they just kind of get to keep their levitate ability, kind of hard to land when you don't have legs. But I will at least give them proper justice when I one day cover the entire Pokemon pantheon. Yes, I'm getting closer and closer to the point where I just want to cover it. It's an itch I need to scratch, and I know it's going to take a lot of time, but I have 3 other videos I need to get through first, including covering the next Pokemon ecosystem video, which we're jumping into Hoenn next. I'm going to have fun with that thumbnail. Little teaser, I think I'm drawing Sharpedo. I don't know for sure yet, though. But what I'll do now is give you one true teaser that is truly ready, as the next video that I'm going to be working on is talking about the horrors from beyond our stars to kick off and finish October, our Ultra Beasts. As if it wasn't scary enough being a land shark, let's just make Garchomp's features sharper and spikier, more toothy even, as we get Mega Garchomp. Let's just make everything sharper. Its arms, its legs, throw some teeth on its chest, and you know what? Give it a jaw that could cut through a vault door while we're at it. The Mega Evolution energy coursing through its body caused the claws and fins on its arms to melt from excessive energy, morphing them together into sharp red blades. And it took a great pride in those wing-like fins, probably because it could fly with them. So now, since they are gone, it becomes enraged during the Mega Evolution process, rampaging with that anger. Now it can use those sides to slice the ground to pieces, and when fighting, it viciously tears up its opponents. Honestly, you know what I imagine? I imagine like that moment, the classic like scythe drag that you see in things like Puss in Boots and The Last Wish, as this Pokemon dashes full speed, not only just trying to swing its sides at you to rip you apart, but also sending just mounds of debris at you in the event that you are somehow fast enough to roll out of the way from the direct line of attack, which would in turn, that debris would turn you into Swiss cheese. And all of this actually really lines up with its ability Sand Force, which increases the power of rock, ground, and steel type moves. Look, all I'm saying is that Garchomp was already terrifying, right? Knowing that it can fly fills my heart with fear. The first time I saw that, I actually screamed, going, why is it able to fly? And while I assume it can't fly in its Mega form, it is now angrier than ever before and is ready to take out anyone in its path like an unstoppable Grim Reaper. Do not Mega Evolve this Pokemon. We do not need a national tragedy. The best dreads in the game are here with Mega Lucario. Learn some more spikes, black vein-like colorations, and longer fur on its chest and all over its tail, and change its eyes to be orange instead of red, and you have yourself your Pokemon. Also, those dreads are actually aura-sensing appendages, as its own aura heightens throughout its own body, which is the reasoning for all those black markings throughout its body. Kalos Legend claims that Lucario was the first discovered Mega Evolution, that is, until Rayquaza was discovered to Mega Evolve in Hoenn, although it was the first to be discovered through Mega Stone, at least that we know of. People call its fighting style ruthless due to it being bathed in the explosive energy of Mega Evolution, awakening its instincts and causing it to not show mercy to any of its opponents. It focuses its mental energies and is now only governed by combative instinct. Pair this with its ability Adaptability, which powers up moves of the same type as Lucario, and it maximizes its already existing abilities to the next level. Look, all I'm gonna say is everybody loves this Mega Evolution for a reason. I mean, including myself. I had a Lucario named Protag-kun that made a huge difference throughout my Pokemon X blind Nuzlocke. Because yes, I had never played it before, and I really gotta edit that video down at some point. Which, Mega Lucario is an incredibly important Pokemon in terms of whether Mega Evolution actually harms a Pokemon, whether or not the negative parts are true or not. Because I will say they are true, but not in every Mega Evolution instance that occurs, because of the following reasoning that we also get from the anime. In the Aura Storm, Gherkin owns a Lucario that can Mega Evolve into Mega Lucario. Gherkin's Lucario was used in a battle against Korrina's own Lucario, but when Korrina's Lucario lost control in Mega Evolution, Gherkin's Lucario had to knock it out. Remember that Mega Evolution itself puts an incredible strain not only on the Pokemon, but also on the trainer, as this is completed through the bond between them. And we have Masters of Mega Evolution that keep these stones behind locked doors, until a trainer proves themselves worthy. Also, I will say now there is some suspicion that Gherkin is one of the original, or at least not original, but a descendant of Draconids. Ultimately, though, this process protects the Pokemon and the trainer from the negative possibilities that happens with Mega Evolution. After all, it seems as though the negative side effects primarily occur when people just force Mega Evolution to happen. These negative entries are horror stories, deterrents to protect lives, to try and prevent people from just going through and forcing an immense amount of energy through a Pokemon that is not ready to receive it or does not trust them yet, meaning the trainer can't guide their Pokemon through their strong bond. Because even if we look at regular Pokemon battles, it's insinuated both in the games and in the anime that battles in general are incredibly exhausting for both trainer and Pokemon. It's why they are tired after battle. It's why you white out if you lose. You pass out from excessive strain. Now, do all of that again, but with an excessive amount of energy that you can't actually control. And if you can't control it, the remainder of the strain goes onto the Pokemon, picking up on your slack. So, long story short, I theorize that Mega Evolution only causes a considerable amount of pain and only causes the Pokemon to rampage if it's done incorrectly. And Lucario is the perfect case study for this. Check your local weather stations because we have a snow warning, Mega Abomasnow! The sprouts on its back grow into massive shafts of ice. Its fur becomes long and shaggy, and green fur or sprout remnants surround the base of the large icicles on its back as the white fur covers the middle. I had to actually pull up the official Pokemon database rather than just use the usual sites to try and get some more information on this Pokemon, and there was nothing. I literally mean there was nothing at all, because the only additional information I found on the official sites was the same information that already exists on say Bulbapedia. I could not find anything else on it. It's almost as if Pokemon themselves have forgotten about this Pokemon, left behind like the abominable snowman itself. Kind of feel bad for it. It deserves a lot more justice for Abomasnow, you know, because yeah, it's a grass ice type. Yeah, that's defensively the worst combination ever. I think the only other one that potentially could be worse is Ice Bug. Sorry, Frostmoth. But it's a shame. I can't even figure out any sort of fun stuff to talk about with it that wouldn't just be regular Abomasnow that I'll talk about when I eventually cover every single grass type. So ultimately, let's just hope one day in the future it gets a little bit more love, a cool moment, or some solid lore at the very least. We're finally on to the next series of Mega Evolutions, as we are going to start talking about the ones that got Mega Evolutions when Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire was released. Starting with a Pokemon that didn't need more multi-foot long poisonous stingers, but got them anyway against God's will, Mega Beedrill. And don't get me wrong, the design is mwah, woohoo, it's so good. I would even argue that it's so cool I could prove it scientifically, though I don't know how one would do that. Its Japanese name literally translates to spear, as it quite literally has gained not one spear, but 2 lances for arms, in addition to another pair of arms for lances, as its legs are replaced by them because it has no reason to land anymore, and its stinger is just so bulky and full of poison that it looks like it would hold enough poison to drop 300 Caparajs. It has also gained more wings, having 3 pairs in total, helping ensure it never has to land, and it can make sure it can speedily reach you before you have a chance to even react. By the way, the 4 limbs have slow-acting poison to finish opponents, while the instantaneous poison in the stinger is used to prevent the foe from fleeing. So to reiterate that, it stings you with its primary stinger once to prevent you from running away, then uses the other 4 stingers to let you slowly die from its poison. Though, slowly is a choice word, to use since, I quote, "It stabs its prey repeatedly with the stingers on its limbs, dealing the final blow with the stinger on its rear." And I wasn't joking about all the multi-foot stingers that it's repeatedly stabbing you with, even though it's supposed to be letting you slowly die from poison. Mega Beedrill itself is 4'7" or 1.4 meters, assumedly from the top of its antennae down to the tip of its stinger. If it's not, then this makes it even bigger, and we're not going to talk about that. Two of those stingers, the primary lances on the side where their arms are without a doubt a minimum of 2 feet long. So, I'm sure that the prey dies well before the poison sets in, as they are speared through the chest. By the way, just a fun little thing, Giovanni and Pokemon Adventures had a Mega Beedrill, so I think that's pretty cool, because Giovanni's like the OG. Now, it also has the highest base attack and speed stats of all poison-type Pokemon, but the funniest thing that it has is its ability, Adaptability, which increases the same type attack boost of this Pokemon. So if it uses Bug-type moves or Flying-type moves, it increases the multiplier of the damage from 1.5 to 2. Not even talking about whether it's effective on the opposing Pokemon or not. Also, for anybody who doesn't know, same type attack boost is shortened in the acronym STAB. So this Pokemon is just incredibly good at stabbing. Oh, it's so good. You can't tell me they didn't plan that. That is a meme. That is a joke. There's so many jokes within, like, even just the abilities of Pokemon that I've never realized before, and that is what makes it hilarious and so worth going through all the tiny details like abilities for these Pokemon. Here's another great example of a Pokemon that got a design upgrade without changing the base model too much. Mega Pidgeot. With larger, broader wings, it is covered plenty in colors of yellow, cyan, and magenta, as it even seems to grow more feathers overall. An additional magenta plume is seen coming out of its head crest and wings. The one out of the head crest is sensitive to air currents, acting like a large antenna and stabilizing Mega Pidgeot's flight. And of course, it has no guard, which ensures the attacks of the user and opponent land without fail. That crest basically might just end up being super helpful at predicting the movement of foes through how they shift the air currents, but that head crest may also be easily or very directly projecting where Mega Pidgeot is planning to go, making it an easy target. So basically, it can guarantee a hit on the foe, but the foe can guarantee a hit on Mega Pidgeot. All this extra wing power allows it to fly for 2 weeks without rest. As a reminder, regular Pidgeot already flies at Mach 2 speeds. We are going to assume that Mega Pidgeot does not move faster, because we have not been told otherwise. So, Mach 2 speeds is 1,480 miles per hour, or 2,381 kilometers an hour. And, because I haven't mentioned this before, Mach 2 is twice the speed of sound. Mach 3 is 3 times the speed of sound, so on and so forth. So it flies at twice the speed of sound without rest for 2 whole weeks. The measure of the equator, we're going to put this into perspective. The measure of the equator is roughly 24,901 miles. Divide that by how fast it moves in miles per hour, and we get 16.83 hours. Mega Pidgeot could clear the equator of the Earth a total of 19.96 times over the course of 2 weeks without rest. Around the world in 90 days, eat your heart out. One of the best Pokemon out there in my personal opinion, with an unfortunate, torturous background in every form that it's ever had, throughout every region, throughout every additional, little bit of life that it's had, now gets to be tortured even more as its Mega Evolution is stolen from it, Mega Slowbro, which is really just Mega Shelter, since the Shelter takes all of the Mega energy and becomes harder to the point where nothing can scratch it. Harder than Diamond on the toughness scale, understood. but the shell gives the ability Shell Armor due to this and prevents it from being hit by a critical hit. The shelter also grows in size and engulfs the Slowbro within it so that only the head, arms, and tail are poking out. Mind you, the head is poking out from within the mouth, trapped within Shelter's teeth. It moves as the Spoink does, which is by bouncing on his tail like a spring, and otherwise the Slowbro itself does not change at all. But by technicality, it gains some power and motivation from Shelter's digestive fluids. Because yeah, I'd be motivated to move faster and end the battle faster too if I was literally being digested while alive! Now, I do love every iteration of like the Slowpoke line overall, and I'm very tempted to just make a video on them because I love them that much. I mean, yeah, I love Gengar. Gengar's my #1, but Slowpoke line just goes way up there. I love their dopey face. I love their tortured background, unfortunately. But I would love to see an alternate form of them in Legends ZA, where Mega Slowbro actually is Mega Slowbro, not Mega Shelter. Maybe give me a Mega Slowking, I don't know. Something to make it so that it doesn't have to suffer or have to deal with the Shelter anymore. Garchomp isn't the only one with Sand Force, as the harder than diamond Steelix takes the stage, or rather eats it. Its body mass almost doubles, its eyes turn blue, and it is just all around more armored and just a bit more segmented than before. There are now even crystalline, prism-like spikes that protrude from parts of its body, which very much reminds me of the deep underground quartz that I've talked about in other videos. There are metallic-looking scraps that rotate around its head and react to Steelix's movements and change positions when attacking. These cells within its body, crystallized by the energy produced by Mega Evolution, are stronger than any mineral and are able to withstand any temperature. It moves incredibly slowly, but its strengthened body is also impervious to damage, so it's in no rush. It also lashes out at foes without flinching. So you might be thinking, oh, it's like when graphite or coal is compressed to be turned into diamonds, which yes, technically that is true. But it's incredibly uncommon only for one reason. According to University of Waterloo, graphite is most often found as flakes or crystalline layers in metamorphic rocks such as marble, schists, and gneisses. Graphite may also be found in organic rich shales and coal beds. In these cases, the graphite itself probably resulted from metamorphosis of dead plants and animal matter. Graphite is also found in veins and sometimes in basalt. Graphite also occurs in meteorites. This means that it is primarily in the upper layers of our Earth's crust, where it is typically not as hot and there is less pressure, basically making it so that they are not being turned or converted into diamonds. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible to find it in the lower levels, but a lot of those rocks that I mentioned, those minerals that I mentioned, are found in the upper layers, not in enough of a lower layer to cause this change from graphite to diamond. And like coal doesn't really do that itself. Again, coal very much does not do that because it is in the upper layers only. So basically, we'd have to be incredibly lucky and digging pretty deep. I will also quote more from University of Waterloo, as graphite consists of a ring of 6 carbon atoms closely bonded together hexagonally in widely spaced layers. The bonds within the layers are strong, but the bonds between the layers are less in number and therefore are weaker. Graphite is the stable form of carbon. Diamonds at or near the Earth's surface are gradually changing to graphite. Fortunately, this process is extremely slow. And you're wondering, okay, why did the diamonds get close to the surface? I don't know. That sounds very relative in how they stated it. In addition, there are ways for things to be moved up in layers, and if you are a very sturdy, strong material like diamond, even if you are slowly converting to graphite to become more stable, you can withstand a lot of other incredible heat and pressure as you're moved up to the surface, wherever you'd find them. Otherwise, though, this type of thing is not naturally happening under natural conditions, and that's why you can get like lab-grown diamonds. I'm not a diamond expert. Don't talk to me about it. I did what I could to research it. Ultimately, though, as we look at Steelix in relation to all of this, the Mega Evolution produced so much energy, which that energy can be converted or seen as heat, which we have seen with many of our Mega Pokemon so far. Body temperatures rising, melting, inability to control your body heat, and we can make a theory that transferring energy can be done through heat, and that is one way that Mega Evolution works overall. It is important to note that the transferring of energy through heat does not create energy. No. The energy is created through the Mega Stone, the bond between human and Pokemon, and the Pokemon's infinite energy that it holds within it, its own life force. I don't want to make an equation relating Pokemon energy systems right now. I will save that for the infinite energy video, which will give me a headache and a lot of just science or math that I have to make entertaining somehow. I had to think about it. And if we look at the scenes of the Great Kalos War, we do see Steelix there, and Salamence. And the big weapon kind of looks like Celesteela, but that's irrelevant. But then there's Abomasnow, and Gyarados, and Aggron, and they all got Megas. But I don't see any others in that picture that got Megas. I mean, we could look at, you know, all the other ones that are there, and maybe they got lost. Maybe those Megas were lost in the war. They're DNA-filled orbs gone, you know, and so we don't have Golurk, Magnemite, Bisharp, Noivern, Rhyperior, Weavile, Talonflame, Lunatone, Solrock, and there's a freaking Honedge there too! The little monster controlling life and just stealing history itself. But who knows? Maybe not just, you know, maybe those Mega Evolutions were planned in some capacity, or they were like, maybe we'll make it in the future, but we're not even gonna, you know, worry about it right now. Or at least they were planting the seeds so they could come back to it later. I mean, Bisharp got Kingambit, so, you know, it's hard to say where those are going to go at this point, but I can only hope those Pokemon get some extra love, because it just feels like they could have had Megas. With tail held high, the lightning strikes at the coniferous tree-like appendage, attracted by ability Lightning Rod. Another forest fire prevented by Mega Sceptile, and the lightning itself is but a small sting to the grass dragon Pokemon. Its head has become more pointed, seeds on its back grow larger in yellow color until they get close to the aforementioned tail that is now lengthened, looking not just like a topped Christmas tree, but also a ballistic missile, because that is what it is. As the explosion lets off, we see the missile fly with a red stinger at the tip, ready to pierce through, if not at least impale the foe. The lost tail will continue regenerating as long as it still has the energy required for Mega Evolution. So it loses its tail like a normal lizard does and regrows it in the coolest way possible. And regular Sceptile is a forest guardian, being considered the fastest moving in any jungle due to its ability and maneuverability. Those U-seeds that we see on its back, the yellow ones, not just those red ones, were already good at revitalizing trees since they were full of nutrients, and now they're just larger, probably packed way more full of energy and nutrients now that it's in its mega form. So who knows, maybe it could just regrow the entire Amazon forest. Real talk though, the Hoenn starters were, they hit so good. I mean, really freaking cooking, because, Hoenn, I played too much Hoenn, right? You play Hoenn. There's a lot of ROMs out there, you know, when you're a little kid, and, you know, you just play them, right? And let me tell you, I got tired of Hoenn. And yet, these Hoenn starters really got the real meat of it. I don't know why X and Y didn't give, you know, their starters mega forms. They better get some in ZA, otherwise I'll be kind of disappointed. Yeah, sure, Greninja basically got a mega form through its Battle Bond stuff. I mean, it's quite literally Mega Evolution without the Mega Stone. I don't know, but man, they're so cool. And we have one more absolute champion to talk about, as this one made me go from
I was a wimp before Anchor Arms. Now I'm a jerk and everybody loves me.
No, seriously, I am not kidding at the slightest when I say what I'm about to say. I know I joke a lot, I know I'm over dramatic, I know I'm sarcastic, but something about this Mega. I do not care about regular Swampert. I don't like it. I like Mudkip. Marshtomp is kind of ugly, in my opinion. But Swampert, do not care about, in my personal opinion, at all. I just kind of don't really care for it. But it's Mega, the sheer chadness of this Mega, the anchor arms, the muscle, the power, the ability to blast air from its arms, the protrusions, these organs that are on its arms, so that way it can not only move faster, but also punch harder in water or on land. And that makes it so much cooler. Everything about it. I mean, you bet. Like, I'm gonna tell you now, you can bet your bottom dollar it's using that ability, those organs, to also swim faster, as it does have the ability to swim, especially with those large fins, like just big old ridges poking out the water, like the most muscled shark in existence. And you might be asking yourself, where does all this air come from? And, well, that's because of those organs on its back as well fill with air before diving underwater or battling. Then, Mega Swampert uses that pressure to increase the power of its punches. It's a pressurized punching system, as if its muscles weren't already enough, and I'm all for it. I cannot say this enough. The more I talk about Mega Swampert, the more I love it. It is in my top 3 favorite Megas. And I, in my personal opinion, think it made regular Swampert, which, respect to its design, I have my personal opinions, but respect to its design, but it took regular Swampert and made it infinitely better across the board. And I have a massive respect for somebody who can take the design of something that I do not care for or do not like, depending on the day, and turn it into something that I love and will gush over. Top 3 in terms of favorite Megas. Mega Swampert deserves it. If you're a fan of the Legend of Zelda series, you'd love a giant rupee, but you'd have to fight for it, as Mega Sableye is not giving it up. Bigger reason for why it probably isn't going to give it up is because the red jewel on its chest ended up receiving a ton of the Mega energy and ripped out of Sableye's chest. I mean, yeah, sure, its ear is elongated and it does get an extra spike on its head. Maybe its teeth turn a little bit yellow and its eyes turn red. But again, most of that energy went to that gem, especially as we do see a few more extra gems on its back, which it is said that every Sableye has a different gem pattern because they grow them on their body as they eat the gems. You are what you eat. But this big old rupee that it holds in front of it boasts an incredible hardness that no attack can even leave a scratch on it. In fact, even status effects just bounce off of it with the ability Magic Bounce. This makes it the ultimate shield for Sableye, who hides behind it during battle and takes advantages of its opponent's openings. But since the jewel is incredibly heavy, it can't move quickly and is left exposed, vulnerable to attacks from behind. Basically, our little jewel thief got exactly what it wanted. Greed fueled the jewel to become larger as it directed that energy towards it, but the monkey paw curled and Sableye will be struggling moving it. Isn't there like a whole story about that where like somebody wanted riches beyond their like understanding and they got exactly what they wanted, but they couldn't move any of it because it was too heavy, and if they couldn't move it, like the entire palace or something was going to crash upon them. There's got to be multiple stories like that. I gotta admit though, at least with Mega Sableye, it's pretty metal, considering like it could all be a metaphor for Sableye's heart, considering it is red and it is from Sableye's chest. How strong is your jaw? Because Mega Sharpedo packs quite the bite with its ability Strong Jaw alongside the incredibly new number of spikes and teeth. Ready for another dark type in excruciating pain? Because the yellow patterns on its body are old resurfaced scars that were carved on it during battles of the past, causing it sharp pain and suffering. And if that wasn't enough, the fangs in its mouth have transformed. The horns that are sprouting from its nose are actually fangs that are retractable and can be regrown countless times. It reaches 125 miles per hour and beyond in an instant. And its combat instinct has increased as it uses its sharp spikes to inflict deep wounds to its opponents after charging at them. The way it does this, basically, from my understanding, is at first it rams into you, then lets the spikes through you in just this terrible 1-2 punch. As if the Pokemon known as the bully, ruffian, bandit, or gangster of the sea wasn't tough enough, we give it the old scarred up shark treatment as if it's some kind of shark tail mob boss and send it on its way. It could also draw additional inspiration from the saw sharks or saw fish in its mega form, and honestly, this Pokemon without Mega Evolution could already chew through steel, the hull of ships, and everything. Why are we making it even more of a threat in the water? Like, it's reasons like this that make me happy I don't live in the Pokemon world. The water in real life is already scary enough. I don't need to have a shark moving faster than a torpedo, slamming into me and using me as its personal combat dummy. Krakatoa is about to erupt as we get a full singular active volcano on the back of Mega Camerupt. And trust me, like I said, that volcano is very active. The fur has expanded to the point where we can just barely see the hooves. We get longer tufts of hair on its head, a big ol' M on its head, and it has a new deep hatred of water or any moisture. And Camerupt has officially gone from a seemingly docile Pokemon to one that is explosive in personality with a short temper as the volcano is constantly erupting in efforts to intimidate foes. That comes out in its moves as it uses its ability Sheer Force, caring not for any additional effects that its moves may have, and instead ditching those and the more tactical route in favor of a more pure, maximum force damage all-out attack. Mega Camerupt does also get a few extra inspirations separate from the OG, as that big M is not meant to be put upside down for Wumbo, but instead may reference Maxie, who did have a Mega Camerupt. In addition, it has a single hump instead of two, representing the dromedary camel, and the skirt is reminiscent of wild yaks, which Camerupt kind of looks like with its face in general. I sometimes feel like this Pokemon doesn't get enough love, but I at least imagine hugging it would be very nice, even though it would never let me hug it in its Mega form. Sing me a song and put me to sleep amongst the most fluffy, cloud-like feathers of Mega Altaria. Now, the only dragon fairy type, at least for now, as the feathers have grown as a self-protective measure and glimmer with an iridescent sheen. Its belly is fully exposed, but its head, back, and wings are very much covered in an incredible amount of cotton. It does have kind of a hat now alongside of a single curling feather from its forehead, and the tail feathers have lengthened, becoming streamer-like, and the piece de resistance, its singing voice is even more beautiful than its regular form, being known for its pleasant personality and not being timid in the slightest. It is so proud to have its power back that it also gains the ability Pixelate, changing all normal moves to fairy type moves, just like how it has now returned powers of fairy typing and fairy type moves overall. Honestly, Mega Altaria is just winning the day as it gets its Mega form back. It's almost as if the dragon Pokemon, ancient in nature, have something deep within them that they locked away to time. Some, like Garchomp, worked to get away from it and develop new features, such as the ones that allow Garchomp to fly. Others, like Altaria, seem to take joy in what they once were, attaining it again. Which brings me to another idea, and I've kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. Mega Evolution could be what Pokemon once were in the past. Ancient lost DNA has been mentioned before, being reawoken by Mega Evolution. Maybe after all these many years and generations, traits were lost by Pokemon, which makes sense. Normal evolution works that way. Some of these traits they lost yet still desired. Others they attest. all because of their external pressures. And now that this newfound energy has reawoken who they once were, they gain their powers and abilities back. Maybe every Pokemon walking around in the past was a Mega Pokemon. Or alternatively, the first Pokemon of each species could have been a Mega, a progenitor Pokemon of each in some capacity. It would make sense for many of them. And these stones could be just that. Stones, pieces of meteors which contain DNA, something that has preserved the ancient DNA of that Pokemon, and that is why you can't just use Mega Stones on every Pokemon. You have to have this specific one for your Pokemon that you are Mega Evolving. It also could be used to explain why legendaries can just Mega Evolve on their own. It's because they are the progenitors of their species. They are the originals, or at least close enough that they can still tap into this power within themselves, and they haven't lost it yet through years and eons even of evolution. And you might be asking, why can't first or second stage Pokemon Mega Evolve then? Well, it could be because they simply didn't exist. Maybe only final evolutions existed in the beginning, and as time went on, they developed differently. Some of them had to conserve their energy, or they didn't need to fight as much. Think about Stantler and Weirdeer. They became smaller. They lost those abilities. They had no reason to use them anymore. So, it's kind of like a first form Frieza situation even. It's a theory that ultimately I would love to explore a lot more with ZA coming out, and I know I sound like a broken record saying that, but we're talking about Mega Evolution, so how can I not bring it up over and over again? But for now, we just have a few more Pokemon to get through. If for some reason you need your food to be just a little bit colder, call up the boy with the ability to refrigerate, as we have Mega Glalie, turning all normal moves to ice moves and having its jaw dislocated because of the overwhelming energy. Mega Glalie's mouth now extends to the length of its face. The lower jaw is all black, like a big old beard, excluding 2 icy spikes that come out of it. The pupils have turned red, and the horns on its head have started turning to ice alongside the growth of a horn growing from its forehead, kind of where that opening was on regular Glalie to begin with. It can spill endless blizzards, causing full whiteouts from its broken mouth, which it gets irritated over the fact that it can no longer consume prey with. And if you happen to get caught by surprise and it envelops you in its mouth, you are frozen instantly. Poor guy didn't deserve it. I mean, it just ended up getting a broken jaw because that's all that it had to work with the Mega Evolution. I mean, though, this also does make me very curious as to what our Yuki Onna version would be if it would get the Mega. Yes, I'm talking about Frostlass, of course. I mean, I'm willing to bet that it would, I had to do some research, it would get something like the Junihito, which is known as the, or at least direct translated even to, the 12-layer robe, and which is formerly worn as a court dress. I mean, come on. Look at that. You can't tell me that would not be sick to see Frostlass adorned in, considering it always seems to wear a kimono anyway. And I apologize, Glalie, that I turned this from a talk about you to Frostlass, but you got the short end of the stick, my dear human-headed Pokemon. Pinsir isn't the only one with Aerialate, as there is another Pokemon that basically refuses to land on the ground now that it boasts incredible speeds and flying capabilities. Mega Salamence, the croissant of the skies. Its wings have melted together into a single huge crescent-shaped wing. It is said to be hard, yet very flexible, allowing them to be used as blades in mid-air battles. Honestly, its design is reminiscent of our Paradox Pokemon Roaring Moon, and while it is said that they are not genetically related, mainly because they are from different timelines, it does add to the Mega Pokemon are just their past forms theory. Moving on though, all the other body parts are noticeably shorter, likely as to keep them tucked in, safe, and provide a better aerodynamic body, streamlining it and making it better for flight. The upper pair of fins it has on the sides of its head are elongated and tapered, the lower ones are the same, and the middle sets are in quarter arches. The last pieces of its shell when it was a Shogun now have changed to frame it better like an armor of sorts that can interlock when Mega Salamence tucks in its appendages for flight. Though despite how much it longed for flights from Bagon to now, the stress of Salamance's vaunted wings becoming misshapen in its Mega Evolution aggravates it to the point of rampaging. I mean, it worked really hard on those wings to grow them, to let them be full. I'd be kind of angry too to lose my beautiful wings. This fuels its already brutal nature and makes it likely to turn against the trainer who raised it. Because of this, it is feared as the blood-soaked crescent. Anything and anyone in Salamance's path gets sliced in two by its blade-like wings, posing no interruption to its flight in the process. Look, Blood Moon Ursaluna, it can sit down because we already had the original Blood Moon. The red dripping scythe was here long before it was. And I do not want to personally find out what happened on that first fateful night that the Rampage gave us every reason to fear this Mega Pokemon and gave it that nickname. I do have to admit though, this is another Pokemon that I got a nice little upgrade from its regular form and made me like it a lot more. What can I say? I'm a sucker for moon iconography. Recognized as the first Mega and a Pokemon so powerful that it got an entire tier of its own in competitive, it's lonely at the top after all. But Mega Rayquaza likes it that way. We already talked about most of its history with the Draconids, but let's talk about this powerful dragon some more. Picking up even more features of the Eastern Dragon, including long wisps from its elongated horns, there are delta markings and Shishishito markings on it. The Shishishito is the 7-branched sword, a ceremonial one which I learned was depicted in many different forms of media. It is considered an artifact of ancient East Asian rituals, diplomacy, and cultural exchange, telling tales through inscriptions of the historical relationship between Korea and Japan. And according to what I could find from sources, I would say those sources are a little shaky, but at least provided similar information, hoping they didn't just look at each other and go, I'm gonna take your yoink, you know? In terms of sacred symbolism, the 7-branched sword is imbued with profound spiritual and religious significance. Its use in rituals aligns it with ceremonial staffs employed by shamans to connect with the divine realm. Each branch might represent distinct deities or elements, linking it to ancient religious practices. Divine inspirations may be, as the branches could also symbolize the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, a prominent constellation in East Asian cosmology. This interpretation transforms the sword into a celestial map, connecting it to the heavens and potentially divine lineage, which would line up incredibly well, if it's true, with our big old guardian dragon here. Mega Rayquaza can also control the density and humidity of air, allowing it to straight up manipulate the weather and eliminate all of the flying type's weaknesses. This is called the Delta Stream. Mega Rayquaza was said to be born from humanity's wish for salvation, channeled through the keystone of a Draconid Lore Keeper. It is at its full power within this state. It can undo the primal forms of Groudon and Kyogre and destroy meteors even larger than itself, which it is a very large Pokemon, being 35 foot 5 inches or 10.8 meters, about 3.5 stories tall to give you an idea, and no, not the book, the building. So you have to respect the power of Rayquaza to begin with, and honestly, its Mega Evolution is something that makes me relieved to know that it is on our side, humanity's side, assuming you don't just start spraying a bunch of aerosols in the air and thin the ozone layer. Becoming so scrappy, it's an ability, that it can now even hit ghost types with normal and fighting type moves, we now have Mega Lopunny. Its personality drastically changes, becoming extremely aggressive with wild fighting instincts. In order to become more capable of fighting without being held back, it sheds its fur on its neck, upper torso, fingers, and legs, forming black patterns that resemble ripped pantyhose. It gets a butterfly crest above its eyes, and the fur around its wrists and ankles become rounded, similar to bands. And honestly, I immediately think of the character from Street Fighter who has similar bands on her wrists, Xiao Yu. And when Mega evolved, a full power whip swing from its now segmented ears can crumple steel plates. Like when it just whips its head and swings the ears full force. Its ears, the thing rabbits are known for, either their legs or their ears. Like, Jesus. So yeah, you've turned a creature that when in fight or flight situations always chooses flight. I see rabbits in my backyard. The second they make eye contact with me, they freeze, and if I get closer, they run. They choose flight. Now you filled it with so much energy and turned it from a timid creature into one that will always take the fight option. There is no running away. The prey has become the predator, and you are not fast enough to run away from it. Time to focus on the final stretch with inner focus. Or rather, I gotta say, the direct translation is a lot cooler for an ability name being Force of Will, especially as Mega Gallade takes the stage. Its entire body becomes white except its head. Red plates emerge from its arms, which I'm pretty sure are probably its bones. Its blue head crests grows longer, and the spikes on its head also elongate. It gains 2 cape-like protrusions from its back, finishing the look for its knightly appearance. It can cause its psychic power to reshape both arms into blades simultaneously and fight using a dual-wielding style. I like Gallade a bit more than the rest of the Gardevoir line, but this Mega really brings out some of the cool potential ideas to, like, my brain. Because sure, reshape them into blades, fine. But who's to say it can't make them into scythes, multiple smaller spikes, anything just to gain an additional upper hand during any different type of combat that it might be introduced into. It is unflinching, and standing to the bitter end is where you will find this Pokemon, as just like Gardevoir, it lives to protect the lives of humans and Pokemon at all times, always prepared to fight. It's interesting to see that the heart never opens up on its chest, actually, leaving it closed off, as I would suspect it may be more rigid and logical, colder, aiming to finish the job for the sake of others without getting its emotions or other thoughts in the way. Get yourself some Audino berries, a great imaginary stock to have for your Pokemon needs, as it not only takes your money but gives back with a healer ability that has a chance to resolve status conditions. But in all seriousness, Mega Audino is heavier and taller, the patterning on its stomach now gone, and now wearing a lab coat of sorts, kind of like a doctor in like all forms of media. It is now overall lighter pink in color, with a larger tail, tufts on its heels, and a fluff that is centered on its chest. It has 2 curled feelers that extend from under its wing-like ears. It can release pulses that reduce hostility, and underneath the chest fluff, we see secondary feelers hiding away, and when those come into contact with someone, it puts them to sleep instantly. That sounds really nice. I would love to instantly fall asleep. If I could get a superpower, it would be instant sleep. You could be like, oh, but what about flight? I don't care. I don't care. Or make me live forever. I could do this forever, honestly. But just like, bro, instant sleep sounds great. All this kind of looks like a stethoscope, especially with the way that Audino is holding one of them, which it basically is. Because we have this very cute Pokemon that this Mega Evolution is incredibly fitting for, as it has a very kind heart and can already gauge other creatures' feelings and physical conditions by using the original feelers on its ears and listening to heartbeats. Arguably, we have the purest Mega Evolution to ever exist in Mega Audino, as all that energy that is being poured into it is being controlled. It doesn't have a malicious bone in its body, otherwise that would probably be brought to the forefront by Mega Evolution and the excess energy, and instead all of that is being transferred into the ability to help others. Not in combat, but just in overall medical health.
Bow your heads before the queen, the one bearing a 2,000 carats princess-cut diamond upon her head, the brilliant pink color, value, and shape, a legendary myth within our own world that is immeasurable in value.
Fits with ballroom chandelier-like dress, a headdress, and long ribbons, flowing almost like a bridal gown, we have Mega Diancie. Thanks to the Mega Evolution energy, its manipulation over diamonds has grown so much that it can create a sword of them in battle, which reminds me of Vegeto's Spirit Sword every single time I see it. Due to the impurities on the surface of its body having fallen away, it can now shine so brilliantly that when reflecting light, you cannot look directly at it. In this form, it was known as the Royal Pink Princess due to its colors and appearance. Due to it being blessed with both beauty and skill, I feel like Mega Diancie wrote that itself, Mega Diancie can easily adapt quickly to any situation. I want to go back to something I had said a little bit earlier. It can create swords out of diamonds from thin air. In its original form, the Pokédex entry states, it can instantly create many diamonds by compressing the carbon in the air between its hands. It no longer needs to compress the air between its hands in order to do this. So, not only will it blind you in battle, it will create a sword or whatever else it wants out of thin air itself, straight up converting carbon molecules in the air into diamond with incredible heat, pressure, and speed because it does so easily, and use that to fight you. And I will say this here and now. I bet if it really, really wanted to, it would just look you dead in the eyes, point its hand towards you, and you would feel all of the air in your lungs just get replaced with diamonds. It would simply just turn parts of your body to diamond if it wanted to, because we are carbon life forms. We are 18% carbon by mass. And that isn't just like, oh, it would only turn my foot into a diamond. No, it wouldn't. It would turn random parts of your body within you from carbon into diamond. You would probably feel these shards of diamond throughout you. You would cease to function because of the carbon molecules being a part of you overall, all while Mega Diancie just floats away with her entourage of loyal carbinks. But luckily, she is not malevolent, and she just wants to keep the hearts within her kingdom and her loyal subjects alive. We are blessed by the Queen. So with that, every Mega so far has been discussed. I've said it multiple times that I'm really looking for Legends ZA and all the potential that it has within it and what Megas may come. With that, thank you to all of our members from YouTube and Patreon that you can see on the screen. If you would like to see your name on the screen, you can become a member, support the channel for as low as $3. If you wish to give extra support to the channel, become a member. It only goes back into the channel as it ensures I can put more time and effort into video quality. It's as little as $3 a month. And if you can't, share the channel around, watch the other videos. There are supercuts of games that I played. I do live streams, and I'm going through the ecology of every Pokemon region, amongst other massive videos I've already done. So, with that then, as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't do anything I want to do. Don't do anything I would do. Please be nice to each other. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!